So welcome to tonight's BullCharts User Group webinar for remote users. We're getting underway. Please remember, any information tonight that is presented or discussed is only opinion and for general information. No actions in the market are recommended. There's no advice. It's all for personal information only. And maybe, that's what I did in the agenda too. I put together this starting list, didn't I? What we said here was, in terms of trend strength, apply straight line to the chart as a trend line or parallel lines, trend line or parallel lines channel, and use the BullCharts use the mouse cursor and hover that over the chart and have a look at the tooltip, the BullCharts Tooltip. Now, many of you are probably familiar with this. One of the toolbars that we've got usually docked on the left side of the screen, but I dock mine on the right-hand side, is the Line Studies toolbar. And one of the line options in here is the line interval. And if we apply a line interval on the chart here, now usually you can hover your mouse cursor over the line and a tooltip will pop up. I always disable mine for a particular reason. So what I should do is re-enable it. And it's here in the BullCharts Preferences option. Now, Tools, Preferences, I often go to. BullCharts Preferences, Show Chart Tooltips when moving mouse over it. That turns on or off this pop-up here, this little tooltip. Now, if you have something on your chart, maybe a text box with a whole lot of gump in it, and if you've got a text box with a whole lot of stuff in it, every time you hover the mouse cursor over that, you get the tooltip pop up. If you've got a really large text box with lots of text in it, then this can become very distracting, having that pop up all the time. So you can turn it off by going to Tools, Preferences, and in that dialog box, Show Chart Tooltips when moving mouse, untick that box and it'll stop that coming up. Anyway, this trend line is sitting roughly under the price action of the All Ords from when? Turn on the mouse cursor. The price at the bottom there is early October 2020. And up here, the price is about July 2021. And hover the mouse cursor. We can see, can you read hopefully you can read the text inside that tip box. It's got the start and end date of that trend line, the number of bars, the number of calendar days that change. This is the index, so the change in value is 1,490 odd points. The percentage change, 24.96%. The gradient is 7.2 per bar, per day, per candle. And the annualized percentage change is 32.5%. So that's one way to look at, if you like, trend strength, is to put a line on the chart and read that off. Now, parallel lines, where's my parallel lines gone? Oh, it's here. Parallel lines, click and click. And there are two parallel lines. We can move one. We can swing them both to change the angle and adjust one of them and hover the mouse over that, and that should give us roughly the same information. So it doesn't matter whether we use the line segment or the parallel lines or even the ray or the infinite line. They should all give us much the same. Does the information take into account log scale? Alec, that's an excellent question. My vertical axis, my price axis, is pretty much always logarithmic. Right click, semi-log is on. So how's the calculation, how does it take that into effect? Not sure. let's make a mental note. Write these numbers down. The percent change there is 24.96, almost 25. If I turn Semilog off, is it still the same? 24.96% change still the same. So I think the answer is, yeah, whether log scale is on or off, makes no difference, you get the same answer. I've got a message, a question from Pete. Tooltips, yes, so how do we turn these tooltips on and off for those who want to turn it off or on? Just to recap briefly, on the menu tools, go to the bottom option, preferences. Now, there are lots of options here. The other tabs here are very useful as well. We can cover them another time. The one we're talking about tonight is this one here. Show chart tooltips when moving mouse over it. And I've turned that on. So hopefully that answers that.
Robert, as you know, Robert, I use the channels or parallel lines a lot.
Yes, John.
And I find it very interesting that sometimes the parallel, that little percentage rise per annum can change dramatically, and yet you think the charts are roughly parallel going up. But it's worth putting that little annual change percentage thing on just to check, because you might be holding a stock that's going up 30% a year, and it looks a lot like a stock that's going up 500% a year. It's I refer to that quite a lot.
Yes. Okay. If there's no other comments about that one, maybe we should move on to the next option I've got listed for starters. That's here. Use a moving average and measure the slope at any point in time. Now, these are all manual ways to do it. As I said at the start, ideally we'd be able to scan through our database, our price database, and find only the stocks that are doing something in particular, and then perhaps rank them by trend strength. What are we saying here? Moving average. So if we put a moving average on here, and I've got moving average somewhere up here on my indicator toolbar, moving average, let's just use 14 bar simple moving average. There it is, it's in blue. One of the things that you might have wondered was when I put this straight line on my chart, it was already green and dotted. The way that I've done that is, and this is something fairly basic for some of you, but others might not realize, if you've changed something to be the way you'd really like to see it from now on, like I've just changed my moving average to be a thicker line, and I could change the style to be dotted. If that's what you want to see going forward, then you can change your default setting. Save these settings as my defaults. That defaults button in the bottom left corner of that will change that so that all future times where you apply this, that's how it'll be. Now that doesn't look too dotted, but it is if we zoom in. It's a dotted line, that moving average. Okay, so that moving average. Now, a moving average of only 14 periods, it's a bit hard to measure any trend there, isn't it? So we should stretch that out to something a bit different, maybe 150. How does 150 go? Oh, it's a lot straighter. And I'm only guessing here and doing this by trial and error, which is something that we should be doing a lot of to try to work out what it is that we're really looking for, hoping to get an edge over someone else. How do we find the slope of this at any one point in time? One way to do it is to use this trend ruler. Trend ruler on the line studies bar. Now, I've got a little problem here because when I click once and twice to apply it, it snaps onto the price action. And right now I don't want to do that, so I've got to turn that off. Snap to data, I had snap to data turned on so that it snaps to the closing price. But I'll turn that off for now so that I can drag this down and put it on the moving average. We can see here the change of that moving average from one point to the other, 8.4%. Now theoretically, if our moving average was touching our trend line that we've had in place, we should get the same numbers as before. 24%, that's close. Get it right on, yeah. But measuring the moving average, that's one way to do it. Let's go to the next option, which is where we're building to. Ideally, we should be able to use some sort of chart indicator to determine trend strength, to measure it. And in BullCharts, we've got the true strength index is one option. Also the trend intensity index and a trend trigger factor. So let's have a quick look at each of those. The true strength index. I will use the menu option here, insert indicator. And for those who don't realize it, that's the same as using the control key and the letter I for insert, to get this dialog, insert indicator. Now, if I change the category to be all indicators, insert indicator, all indicators, in this long list, if we click in the list once and then tap the letter T, then it jumps down to the T's. Now we're looking for true, there's a tip, true strength index. And I've got two versions of that here, one with MA. And I'm not sure if everyone has got both of those or if only me. And I notice if we have a look at the script in the indicator, there's no indication of who wrote it or where it's come from. So I'm not sure about its background, but let's add it to the chart. If we click next instead of finish, then the location BullCharts will try to put it on is a new pane, not on the price pane. So let's accept that. So there's a new pane at the bottom. And don't forget, after you've added a couple of indicators and you get these extra panes appearing, you might find that the screen gets a bit cluttered. There's an option here behind view at the very bottom, stack indicators, function key F3. Function key F3, stack indicators, will place those panes at the bottom one behind the other so that you only get to see one of them. So here we've got the true strength index and volume. There's two tabs in the bottom left corner where we can alternate between them. So the true strength index. So if this is giving us a numeric value, a metric for the strength of the trend, then we can see it's going up and down, it's fluctuating. And if we go back here to where we had several months of this rising trend, is it telling us anything useful? And I'm not sure that it does. But over short periods in time, maybe it is useful. Now I'm looking at a daily chart. If we switch from daily to weekly or monthly, now don't forget we've got this little toolbar that was added into a recent upgrade to BullCharts. I can easily switch this to weekly or to monthly. And in that situation, this true strength index indicator is looking fairly useful if we're happy to look at monthly charts. So what we've just seen is that this true strength index, TSI, seems to be useful here on this monthly chart, and maybe also on weekly. Maybe. All right, while we're having a look at this list of true strength things, there's one more, the third one that Kevin pointed out, true strength indicator. There's actually some comments in there. So let's put that on the chart in a new pane. Here it is. It's also called TSI. With the form, Stocks and commodities, January 93. Stochastic momentum and January 91 double smooth stochastics. Okay, so we need to look at the Stocks and Commodities magazine, January 1993 edition, and have a look at that article. I don't have one of those handy, and we might be able to find it online. I'm not sure. And I'm down in the bottom left corner. I've got 4 tabs now. One is volume, and I've got the first indicator we applied, true strength index, and then the true strength index with MA, and then that last one, the trend intensity index. And they seem to be all based around that same blue line. And I guess if we check the script, we might find the formula is the same. Okay, that's probably enough on that one. True strength index, true intensity index. We'll come back into trend trigger in a moment. In the chat box, David has suggested we have a look at the linear regression channel.
Go to indicators, Robert. Yeah.
Linear regression.
L.
Yep.
Linear regression channel.
I don't have linear regression channel.
No.
Oh, I do. Righto. Where did I get that?
No.
The question David's asked there is a really good one because over time, each of us might pick up an indicator from someone else and drop it into our system. And then you might think to yourself, oh, is this standard or not? And there is a way to find out if the indicator you're looking at is a standard supplied indicator or a custom indicator. There is a way to do that. And we can digress at this point and explain how to do that. If I open up that Tools Preferences box, before we looked at this and we looked at the Show Chart Tooltips option, if we go to the last tab, Files, and scroll down a little bit, this is telling us whereabouts in our system all of our BullCharts user files are located. So we can see here the custom indicators are in this folder. And if we click on View Location, BullCharts will open up Windows Explorer on a Windows machine. Here it is. And show us that particular folder path. Expand this. So there it is, Program Files, x86, Bull Systems, BullCharts, Custom Indicators. So here is a list of all of the custom indicators that I've got on my system. I didn't realize I had that many. Goodness. Now, there's another folder here further down called Indicators. And those are all of the standard ones. And you can see there's 296 items in that folder. So they're all of the standard supplied ones. This folder, Custom Indicators, contains all of the custom ones that you've created. So if someone wanted to give an indicator to someone else or you wanted to get one, that's where you would find it in that folder. And if you look at your system and ask, where did I get this from? Is it a standard one or not? That's how to work it out. Find out whether the file is sitting in the Custom Indicators folder or in the Indicators folder. And I'm guessing that if David has a look there.
Right, Robert. I did find it in my custom indicators, so I've picked it up somewhere. Right, bit like a COVID virus, isn't it?
Yeah, pick it up somewhere. The other possibility was that I had it and I've deleted it. But if you've found it in your custom indicators folder, that answers that question for us. What else have we got here? Trend trigger factor. What's a trend trigger factor? Does anyone know? Trend trigger factor. Let's have a look at the formula. Stocks and Commodities magazine again, December 2004.
Yeah.
Let's put that on the chart. Oh, in its own pane, there it is. across the bottom, trend trigger factor. It might take too long for us to try to correlate during the session the price action with the indicator and work out if it's useful or not. So that's something that you could do offline if you wish. But I noticed there are some markers here. One called long, one here called long. And if we wanted to know how to use it, for any of these indicators that do have this citation, it's only a simple matter, is it simple, of going to that Stocks and Commodities magazine, December 2004, and looking for that article. And you might find that online if you go looking for it. No one's used that one. Are there any other, before we talk about super trend, are there any other tools in BullCharts we can use to help quantify the strengths of a trend? Ideally, I would like to find some way to scan all of the stocks and identify the ones that are trending and then put them into my scan results table in order of trend strength. I'm not sure I've found how to do that yet. Any suggestions from anyone?
Well, Robert, those indicators that we looked at, if we actually understood what they were measuring, then you could actually scan on those.
Yes, you're right. Yes, Alec, you're right.
But I don't think I have any idea what they're telling me.
No. The other thing I should point out too, while we're on this, is if any of you get to a stage where you're looking at a chart and you've got some ideas about how to interpret things, don't forget the training mode is something you can turn on and off. Now, I've got my training mode area set to white. Here we go. Background color. I think by default it's pink or salmon. I've turned training mode on. The toolbar is in the bottom left corner. These are little, looks like an easel or a suitcase with legs, briefcase with legs. If you haven't used the training toolbar, have a play with it. Turn on the training toolbar so you've got training mode enabled. You can grab this boundary and drag it left and right across the screen. The idea is that you can have a look at the price action before that blanked out, shaded out area, and think about your analysis and what you think might be about to happen next, and then reveal the price action. And using these buttons down here, we can show more data progressively. And if we turn that on, auto scroll, then this will progressively go across the screen, one bar, one candle at a time. If it's too fast or too slow, there are a couple of buttons on the toolbar where you can speed it up or slow it down. The last button allows us to center it on the screen. So without me doing anything, that's progressing now one bar at a time. So training mode can be useful. I've just turned it off. Training mode. Paul's asked, the ADX indicator is a measure of the strength of a trend. Yes, David sent me an email earlier and mentioned ADX. Let's have a look at ADX. I've got ADX up here on my toolbar. There's ADX. And at a glance, that seems to be a good indication of a trend. Let's switch this to weekly. And I guess we know very well that we had a good trend from the lows of March last year for several months inside that rectangle. Now, what's ADX telling us about that? It started rising back here in January, just before the price fell. Then as the price fell, so ADX, now for those who don't know ADX, and Paul has said in the chat, readings below 20, low, strength above 40, strong. Yes, and we need to remember that it doesn't tell us which way the trend is going, up or down. It's simply telling us the strength of the trend. So this ramp up here in March of last year of the ADX was a reflection of the strong downtrend of the index at that point in time. I was starting to think that maybe we could scan for ADX rising or something, but maybe that isn't the case. Has anyone got any experience with doing that, using ADX?
Yeah, Robert, Kevin here.
Mm-hmm.
My interpretation of what I've been told about the ADX is more of a speed indicator or a rate of change that shows you how fast things are changing.
Yes.
And when she's falling, heat is coming out of the market or coming out of the stock.
Yeah.
And slowing down, because once it drops below 20, it's going into more of a sideways consolidation area. And once she gets above 20, she's picking up interest by traders. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Paul has mentioned 20 and 40. 40 has got a horizontal line here. We can add our own horizontal line there. We can add one at 20. Let's change it to a different color, just because we can. Make it a bit stronger and make it dotted. I like this one. There's 20. And let's make this one green. 40, green, thickness, make it dotted as well. So there's 20 and 40. Yeah. So Kevin, you were saying at 20. That's right.
Yeah, once she goes below 20, we're looking at more of a consolidation.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know enough about ADX here to give any good guidance on that one.
Can I just make a comment, Robert?
Yes, Paul.
So with the ADX and the strength of the trend, as you said, it doesn't tell you the direction of the trend. So it's usually used in a scan as an add-on. With this scan, you can have and or. So you have and. So a simple example is it's got a 200 EMA that's heading upwards, and the strength of the ADX is greater than, say, 25. So you know that there's a bit of movement. It's headed in the direction that you want to buy, and it's obviously one of the stocks you look at because it's starting to increase, as he said, speed or strength. So the trend's getting stronger. It's moving upwards. It's above the 200 EMA. So you would add it in rather than using it by itself. You would add it in as a confirmation that you're on the right track.
Okay, yep, good point. Yes.
It's not useful by itself, yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the key points from what you're saying there, Paul, is that when we're scanning and looking for potential buy candidates, we are more likely to be using 2 or 3 or 4 scan criteria, not just one. Yeah. And
absolutely.
You've mentioned the EMA there and the ADX. Yeah. That's quite valid, quite true. Okay, so having gone through what we've done and looked at a few different tools and indicators, does anyone have a scan that they've developed? You don't need to share it, but if you've got one that measures the strength of a trend and can sort a list of stocks into the order of trend strength, Is that something that you've done? Is that something that's doable, or are we really chasing ghosts here?
It's doable, but it isn't that great by itself.
Yeah.
What you really need to do is combine different types of indicators. You need a trend strength, you need a momentum, you need a direction, you need a volume. And without all, at least 3 of those 4 in line, it's really not confirmation of anything. You really need to have 2 or 3 different indicators telling you the same thing, not a stochastic and RSI and all the same type of indicator telling you the same thing. You need 3 minimum or 4 better. If they're all telling you there's something going on, then there's something going on.
Mm-hmm. And is it
so
possible?
You really need to combine different type of indicators.
And is it possible, Paul, to add something into that scan to put those stocks into a sequence so that the strongest performer is on the top of the list? Yeah.
There is. Normally I print it off to a spreadsheet and do that and then bring it back because it doesn't keep on your watch list. It doesn't keep that.
No.
But
Robert, I did that a couple of years ago where I put together in a scan several different technical indicators, and I used the facilities in the scan to give them different weightings, and then that, of course, generated a percentage score at the end. And then I also took that scan, converted it to an indicator, and plotted it on a chart, and you can see over a period of time how the what I call the technical indicator score either increased or decreased.
Okay.
So yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
Robert, David here.
Yes, David.
I sent you an email privately last week.
Yes.
When I look for stocks I look for them above a 20, 30 and 40. I scan mainly weekly.
Yeah.
Above a 20, 30 and 40 weekly EMA.
Yeah.
And also that each of those EMAs is higher than, say, 3 periods previous.
Yeah.
And then I have an indicator that I picked up somewhere. I'll check with whether, once again, I'm probably out of the BullCharts for it, called a slope indicator. And I just base that on a 20 period, and you can rank to a rough degree, not always, but to from the ones that are got a better slope than others. It's not foolproof, but that's sort of the way I look at things.
I do have slope close indicator.
That's it. Yep. And I think for some reason, if you looked at it uses something like 63. Now, I found that a bit odd, so I changed it to 30 or 40, depending on what I do. Yeah.
Oh yeah, slope close.
That's it.
Must be a standard.
It's not foolproof, but it does give you a bit of an indication.
So this,
and it's using linear regression. I didn't realise that.
That's from Stocks and Commodities magazine, March 97. How about that? I haven't checked that website.
That's a while ago.
I don't know if traders.com is still valid. Linear regression, that's a simple formula. Okay, so there's an option too. I'll make a note of that one. What's it called? This weekly slope close.
Slope close. I think it's it's a standard indicator. It's in the standard indicators list.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Thanks, Alec. How does it look on a daily chart? Oh, it's falling off there. Yeah, that could be useful.
Where that's really useful is have a look at the two peaks, and you see that that indicator is dropping off. Then you know that second peak is a bit of a blow off and it's headed down.
On this
So
weekly chart, Paul, or the daily?
I was just looking on the XAO on a daily chart.
Daily. These two peaks.
As those two peaks, there's a big divergence with the price and those two peaks.
Yes.
Well picked up.
Slope's deteriorating and the price is increasing, so it's not looking great.
And for those who wonder about divergence and how we tend to show it, when we've spotted peaks, one way that we do this is we put a straight line joining one peak to the next on each of the price and the indicator we're looking at. We can see that that is diverging. So I think we're saying that by the time we got to about here in time, we could have seen that the index might have been weak and about to fall some more potentially.
Well, if you put a horizontal line across where the base of this, as soon as it drops below that, you know you're in trouble.
On the indicator?
So the low of that indicator, if you put a horizontal line across, that's exactly where you were talking about up here. That's where it deteriorates greatly.
Yeah. Yep, that's pretty close, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so there could be some use in that one. Okay. All of the ones we've talked about, I'll try to capture some sort of notes about them and put them in the minutes and notes of the meeting for anyone who wants to follow these up some more. And maybe I can edit the recording of this session to be useful, more useful. Okay. One of the other tools that came to mind while we were looking at all of this was Alan Hull's RAW, not R-A-W, RAW spelled R-O-A-R. Oh, I've got it up here, I think. Act Trade RAW. Next, new pane. Best viewed in a weekly chart. Would you like to change to a weekly chart now? Yes, let's do that. Now, RAW is this indicator at the bottom and it's not doing anything. Oh, here it is. It did back here. How about that? What stocks have been, here we go, Vulcan Energy. I know, Afterpay, what's Afterpay? Is it APT or AFT?
APT, you're right.
Now, Alan Hull's got two RAW indicators. This one is HAT RAW. He's also got one called HAV. Alan Hull, not favorites. Let's go to all. No. Scroll down to Hull Allen. When you're looking for an indicator, there are lots of categories here to choose from. You can scroll down to specific types of indicators and keep scrolling down to authors' names. So if we go to Hull Allen, and this is not foolproof, but it can be useful. Act Trade RAW is the one I've got. Act Vest RAW is the other one, and there are ribbon equivalents too. So let's have RAW, and here's HAT RAW. Now the difference is that have is supposed to be more focused and tuned towards investors, whereas the hat raw is more tuned towards traders. I'm guessing all of you are probably more in the trading category rather than investing category. But having a look at Afterpay, and we know that Afterpay is one of those stocks where some of us wish we had have spotted it some time ago, because it was about $4 only 4 years ago, and it's gone up 3,600%. Now, you might think that there's something wrong with the internal calculations for that percentage value increase, but there isn't. That's an annual percentage change of 156%. And Vulcan Energy was another one that I've been studying recently, trying to work out how we can spot these in advance. 7,000% increase on a weekly chart. Anyway, the indicator at the bottom is Alan Hull's HAT RAW, and RAW, R-O-A-R, is an abbreviation for rate of annual change. And there are notes in here about this. Use in weekly charts, ACT traders for trading shorter terms than ActVest. The citation is the Active Trading Course Notes, version 0403, Alan Hull. And those trading course notes, the last time I looked a couple of years ago, they were still available online. So you can search for those and download them and have a look at Alan Hull's comments about how to use that indicator. But trying to summarize it briefly, the value of the indicator, I'll just put a vertical line there. The value here of about 339, 340, 338, that's supposed to be an instantaneous estimate of the rate of annual change of the share price at that point in time. But of course, that's averaged over several weeks. And the formula is quite complicated. And in fact, I think Alan's got the formula in the back of one of his books. I remember seeing it. It might have been the book called Active Investing. So if any of you have Active Investing on your bookshelf, have a look through it. David, you mentioned moving averages. Should we have a look at moving averages?
You can, Robert. Can I also just briefly talk about a moving average oscillator? Now, that's one I've picked up. It's not in the, I've just checked it out.
Yeah.
But what it does is it measures the distance between a fast and a slow moving average, and visually I find it quite well, I find it interesting, and it visually gives you a good idea of the trend strengths. But a thing called the Awesome Oscillator, Bill Williams put it together. It's similar.
There was some
David, the difference between the short and a slow moving average.
True, that's right, exactly right. Well, if you choose to use 12 and 26, you're right. Yeah. Yes.
But you can on BullCharts, on BullCharts, to get that, if you change the style to a histogram, you get a picture definition of it instead. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, change the style, and you can get a histogram of it, and you get the same result. Yeah.
Robert, I've got that moving average oscillator in my indicators. If you go down a bit further in your list that you were looking at.
Yep, that's it.
Keep going. Yeah, at the bottom of those, keep going. Moving average oscillator. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's 1226. Yeah.
Yeah. New pane. So that's the moving average oscillator.
Got to do it.
See.
Got to do as a histogram.
Close, simple. Yep. Change that to be histogram. How do we change that to a histogram?
Style.
It's style. Seconds.
I've got style.
Go to the right.
Underneath the colour.
Style.
That's it. There it is.
That's not a histogram, actually, Robert. If you just click on it again, go back to style. What you've got? Yeah, you've got to go above and below. The one above it. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now apply it, and that's much better. Yeah.
Okay.
So anything below that line, you're not interested. So if you put APT in, for example.
Yeah.
And see, it sort of gives you a fair indication. And by the time it's in that second peak, there's probably a bit of divergence there in the second peak. You want to be starting to think about taking some profit.
This one?
Yeah, coming down, halfway down, I'll be, That's me. I'll be taking some profit. I took some profit.
Robert, I use the MACD as a ribbon, and as the MAs cross over, the ribbon changes from green to red.
There we go. We can see that. Well done.
Okay. You see the down the bottom, the pink and green line flows like a ribbon. The line right through the centre is the zero line.
Yeah.
That's achieved by in the style. It's filling the colour fill in.
Yeah, it's
not
not
your properties.
It's not a BullCharts ribbon though, is it?
No.
No, it's just the MACD, but they've coloured it in the styles. They've coloured in the.
Yeah, it is a MACD. It's just a MACD, but I shortened the period. I don't know if you can read the left-hand end of that.
We can.
I've shortened it back to 6:16, and then I kept the 9 from the MACD, but I've shortened the 6:16. And because it's not an MACD, I had to call it something else. So I call it a JM, which means John's momentum.
But I remember you sharing that once before. MACD. Let's put a MACD on here and see if we can do what Paul said. Finish. There's a MACD. If I go to properties, then I can choose the fill.
Just click fill.
There you go.
Done. That's it.
Okay.
And what John has done is changed the parameters from 12, 26 to
6 and 16.
6.
The first and 16. Yeah. And just made it tighter. I found the other ones were too slow. And what I have to do is I have to actually buy and sell on the turn of the colours, not wait for the crossover. The crossover is too late. It's 3 or 4 days later to get the most out of the price.
Okay.
Okay,
very good. All right, it's 9. Oh goodness, it's 9:30. We've been going for an hour and a half. So thank you everyone for your interest and attention tonight and the input. It's all been really good. I've been recording it. I can go back over the recording and try to make sense of my scribbled notes. Let's stop the recording. Stop recording.